Imagine a dark and stormy night on Lake Michigan. The year is 1886. A powerful wooden steamship named the F.J. King is cutting through the waves. This ship is a workhorse of the Great Lakes. It's not a fancy passenger liner, but a tough vessel built to haul heavy cargo. Its job is to tow other, even bigger ships called schooner barges. These barges are like giant floating wagons, and the F.J. King is the powerful horse pulling them. On this fateful trip, the King is towing two massive barges, the Peshtigo and the Kewanee, both loaded with valuable lumber. It's a job the ship has done many times before, a routine run across the vast freshwater sea. Everything changed in an instant. A sudden violent storm known as a squall descended upon the lake. These storms are legendary on the Great Lakes for their speed and ferocity. The wind howled and the waves grew into towering monsters, crashing over the deck of the F.J. King. The ship was strong, but the storm was stronger. A huge wave slammed into the vessel, sending a torrent of icy water into its engine room. The fires that powered its mighty steam engine were extinguished in a great hiss of steam. Without its engine, the F.J. King was helpless. It was just a wooden shell being tossed around by the angry lake. The captain and crew knew they were in serious trouble. The ship was taking on water fast, and the powerful waves were tearing it apart. With no power, they were at the mercy of the storm. The F.J. King began to sink into the cold, dark depths of Lake Michigan. In the chaos, the tow lines connecting it to the two barges snapped. The barges, now free, were left to fend for themselves in the raging storm. The crew of the F.J. King had to abandon their ship, a terrifying choice in the middle of a tempest. They fought for their lives, but the lake was unforgiving. The ship vanished beneath the waves, taking all of its crew with it. It was a tragic end for a hardworking vessel. For 139 years, the F.J. King became a legend, a ghost story whispered among sailors and historians. The two barges it was towing, the Peshtigo and the Kewanee, miraculously survived the storm. Their crews told the harrowing tale of the night the King went down. They gave their best guess as to where the ship sank, but the lake is vast and deep. Search parties looked for the wreck but found nothing. Over the decades, the exact location was lost to memory. The F.J. King became one of the Great Lakes' many mysteries, a ghost ship that seemed to have vanished without a trace, waiting silently at the bottom of the lake. Finding a lost ship after more than a century is no easy task. It takes dedication, technology, and a little bit of luck. The search for the F.J. King was a perfect example of this. It wasn't just one person, but a whole team of passionate individuals who came together. This team included maritime historians who are like detectives for the sea. They dig through old records, read dusty newspapers, and study maps. They were joined by a group of amazing local people, often called citizen scientists. These are everyday folks with a passion for history and exploration. They decided to team up to solve the mystery of the ghost ship once and for all. Their hunt began not on the water, but in libraries and archives. The team pored over the historical accounts from the crews of the surviving barges. They read every newspaper article published in 1886 about the sinking. These old reports contained crucial clues. They mentioned the direction of the wind, the last known position of the convoy, and where the wreckage from the barges washed ashore. Each clue was like a piece of a giant puzzle. By putting all these pieces together, the search team was able to draw a large search box on a modern map of Lake Michigan. This was the area where they believed the F.J. King was most likely resting. With a search area defined, it was time to bring in the modern technology. The team couldn't just dive into the vast cold lake. They needed eyes that could see underwater. They used a special tool called a side-scan sonar. You can think of it like a very advanced fish finder. It's a device that you tow behind a boat, and it sends out sound waves. These sound waves bounce off the lakebed and anything on it. A computer then turns these returning echoes into a picture of the bottom. The team methodically moved their boat back and forth across their search grid, like mowing a giant lawn, hoping for the sonar to spot something that looked like a shipwreck. For a long time, the search was slow and frustrating. The lake bottom is not flat. It has hills, valleys, and lots of rocks. The sonar screen showed many shapes that could have been a wreck, but turned out to be just geological formations. They are what we call false positives. The team had to be patient and persistent. Day after day, they scanned the lakebed, carefully analyzing every bump and shadow on the sonar display. They knew the F.J. King was out there somewhere. They just had to keep looking, trusting their historical research and their modern equipment to guide them to the final resting place of the long-lost ship. After months of patient searching, it finally happened. A strange shape appeared on the sonar screen. It was different from the rocks and ridges they had seen before. This shape was long, angular, and clearly man-made. It had the distinct outline of a ship. The excitement on the boat was electric. Could this be it? Could this be the FJ King after 139 years? The sonar image was promising, but it wasn't definitive proof. To know for sure, they had to get a closer look. The wreck was lying in very deep water, far too deep for a human diver to safely go. So the team prepared their next piece of high-tech gear, a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV. An ROV is like a small underwater robot. It's connected to the boat by a long cable and equipped with powerful lights and high-definition cameras. The operator on the surface uses controls that look like a video game joystick to fly the robot through the water. The team carefully lowered the ROV into the depths of Lake Michigan, its lights cutting through the darkness. On the screen, they watched as the lake bed came into view. Then, out of the murky gloom, a wooden structure emerged. It was a shipwreck, and it was sitting perfectly upright on the bottom of the lake, as if it had just landed there. It was an incredible, almost spooky sight. As the ROV explored the wreck, the team was in for a huge surprise. Based on the historical reports, they expected to find the FJ King torn to pieces. The stories from 1886 described a violent sinking in a brutal storm, but the ship they were looking at was remarkably intact. The wooden hull was mostly in one piece. They could see the ship's cabin, parts of its deck, and other features. This was not what they were expecting at all. The cold, fresh water of the Great Lakes acts like a natural preservative, slowing down the process of decay. This ship looked like it had sunk just a few decades ago, not in the 19th century. The biggest surprise was the ship's engine. The historical accounts all agreed that a massive wave had swamped the engine room and put out the fires, causing the ship to sink. But as the ROV's camera peered inside the wreck, it revealed the ship's boiler and steam engine were still there, looking almost ready to go. The discovery challenged the old story. It made the historians wonder if the sinking happened differently than everyone believed. Perhaps the ship simply took on too much water from the giant waves and became unstable, rather than the engine failing first. This new evidence was rewriting a 139-year-old story. The discovery of the FJ King is more than just finding an old boat. It's like finding a time capsule from the past. Every detail of the wreck tells a story about life in the 1880s. Historians and archaeologists can now study the ship's design and construction up close. They can see how ships were built in that era, the types of wood they used, and the tools they employed. It's one thing to read about a steamship in a book, but it's another thing entirely to see the real thing preserved at the bottom of the lake. This discovery gives us a direct physical link to the people who built and sailed these magnificent vessels on the Great Lakes. So, what happens next for the FJ King? The wreck is now protected by law. It is a historical site, and it is illegal to remove any artifacts from it. The goal is not to bring the ship to the surface, which would be incredibly difficult and could destroy it. Instead, the plan is to study it right where it is. Archaeologists will use ROVs to create detailed three-dimensional models of the entire wreck. This technology allows them to map every single piece of the ship without touching it. These models can then be shared with museums and schools, allowing everyone to explore the shipwreck virtually, as if they were flying the ROV themselves. Finding shipwrecks like the FJ King is incredibly important. These wrecks are not just sunken treasures. They are underwater museums. They hold clues about trade, technology, and the challenges people faced in the past. Each discovery helps us piece together a more complete picture of our history. It reminds us of the dangers of the Great Lakes and honors the memory of the sailors who lost their lives on these waters. It connects us to their stories, turning names and dates from history books into real people and real events. It's a powerful way to make history come alive. The story of the FJ King is a fantastic adventure. It's a tale of a violent storm, a lost ship, and a dedicated team that refused to give up the search. It shows how history and technology can work together to solve old mysteries. Discoveries like this inspire us to keep exploring and to keep asking questions about our past. There are still thousands of shipwrecks hidden in the depths of the world's oceans and lakes, each with its own story waiting to be told. And with every new discovery, we learn a little bit more about who we are and where we came from. The adventure is never truly over.